So we are finally back on track.
हाँ जी, हाँ, अब तो आ गया है, ठीक है।
The very warm welcome, Prakash sir.
जी, थैंक यू। बताइए, फ्रेम ठीक है?
Crusader, gladiator, the man who changed the entire landscape of police reforms in India through his, unparalleled and never relentless, it is basically relentless effort for police reforms in India. The man credited with the Supreme Court verdict, and he's somebody who's seen it all over the last 65 years of his cherished career. 1958 batch IPS officer Dr. Prakash Singh on board. Vision India Forum today, Amrit Kal series, something to celebrate the next 25 years of India's glory towards global stardom. Dr. Prakash Singh, the country shall be always indebted to you for, bringing out such, what do you call, unparalleled reforms which are inextricably linked to a nation, to a democracy, without which the entire process of development, growth, equitable distribution, egalitarian policies, everything goes for a toss. Dr. Prakash Singh, instead of wasting any further time of yours, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. And you've been also a patroness friend to us as far as the police issues with respect to national security is concerned, because who's who of this country concerned with the security, police, law and order issues in this country over the last 65, 70 years, knows one name for sure, and they all go in regard to that name. That is Dr. Prakash Singh, former DGP SF, former DGP Uttar Pradesh and Assam. Sir, I hand it over to you. Take us through the entire thought process behind your book, Police Reforms, which was inaugurated, which was basically launched. The book launch was done by the Honorable Vice President Shri Venkaiah Naidu ji, no lesser than that great erudite man. So definitely, the Supreme Court's verdict has been in a lot of has a lot of question marks looming over it, because of especially none of the states complying with it, even now after 20 years. Sir, law and order, police reforms, India as a democracy. Over to you, Dr. Prakash Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Goenka, for giving me this opportunity to speak on a subject which is very close to my heart, police reforms in India. Before I proceed with the subject, let me clarify. Firstly, I'm not a doctor. And secondly, I'm not 1958, but 1959 batch. That is just to clarify the credentials and my background. Now, the subject, why do we need police reforms in the country? That has to be understood first. The police reforms we need because, you see, we have a colonial police structure which was handed over to us by the British in 1947. And since then, we have continued with it. Initially, there was no problem and the police system worked well. But gradually, as the years progressed, uh, we realized that, no, this is not the right kind of system for our democratic structure. And this was driven home very strongly during the emergency in 1975, when the police was used and misused and abused by the party in power to suppress the opposition, to crush the opposition, and to do all kinds of things which police are not supposed to do. Fabricating cases against members of the opposition, putting them behind bars for no rhyme or reason. This was done during the emergency, and this was clearly exposed by the Shah Commission in the inquiry report, which is conducted subsequently. Later on, I would say, I can also give the example of 1984 riots, when about 3,006 were massacred in Delhi alone. During that period, the police remained a mute spectator to the carnage by the Congress people, and they just kept watching, and not much action was taken. Of course, there were some honorable exceptions among police officers, Delhi police officers, but by and large, the police remained a mute spectator to the massacre of Sikhs. And that happened because police is completely under the thumb of the executive, and they felt that they can't take any action against those people who appoint them, who post them, who transfer them, who control their service conditions. So, these two incidents uh, very forcefully drew our attention to the fact that our police system is wrong and that some radical reforms should be carried out so that it functions in a manner which is in keeping with the aspirations of the people. In other words, you can say that the need was felt that what is today the ruler's police should transform itself into a people's police. So that is why I went to the Supreme Court in 1996 with a petition uh, for reforms in the police. The petition dragged on for about 10 years, but in 2006 we got the judgment, and it was a historic judgment by the Supreme Court, which contained six directions to the state governments and one direction for the central government. The six directions to the state governments were A, uh, there were three institutional changes which they recommended. In fact, they recommended setting up of three new institutions. One is the State Security Commission. Uh, it was to be so composed that it was balanced between representatives of the government and representatives from the civil society. And the its mandate was to ensure that the police functioned autonomously and it functioned within the limits of law. That was its mandate. Then another institution was the Police Establishment Board, which gave power to police officers in personnel matters. And thirdly, there was a police complaints authority. It was felt that the existing mechanisms to redress grievances of people are not enough, so a police complaints authority should be set up. That apart from these three, there were instructions about appointment of DGP, that he should be, I mean, the process by which he should be selected. And it was said that UPSC will prepare a panel of three officers and the chief minister will select one of them to be the DGP of the state. Then once selected, he will have a tenure of 2 years. Then officers in the field, they were also given a minimum tenure of 2 years. Officers in the field, by which I mean superintendents of police, SHO in charge police station, DIG in charge range, and IG in charge zone. And the sixth direction was about separation of investigation from law and order functions in the metropolitan cities. These were the six directions, and these were given in 1996. And we thought we had great expectations. We thought that once these directions are implemented, there would be a sea change in the working of the police. But unfortunately, that did not happen. That did not happen. And uh, you see, I mean, my sad experience is that in our country, bureaucracy has mastered the art of circumventing the implementation of judicial directions. Specific judicial directions are given, but how to circumvent them, we have mastered that art. And that is what precisely happened. Although so far 18 states have passed laws. These laws were passed purportedly in compliance with the Supreme Court's directions. Uh, uh, because the judgment said that these directions will hold good till such time as the states or the center enact a law on the subject. Because and this direction was this caveat was necessary in the directions because the Supreme Court can give directions where there is a legislative vacuum, but it cannot legislate. So they're finding that there's a vacuum on the subject, they gave directions. But they said that as soon as you pass a law, these directions will no longer hold good. Now, some states found in this an escape clause. They passed laws, as I said, purportedly in compliance of Supreme Court's directions. But actually, what they did was that they gave legal cover to the existing arrangement. They just sanctified the existing arrangement, uh, gave it a statutory basis, and so that they could say that, look, we have complied with your directions, and now we have passed a law. And because we have passed a law, so your directions will not apply to us any longer.
Dr. Prakash ji, just a small intervention, sir. I mean, could you just cite an example from the DGP appointment perspective? Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can.
From a DGP appointment perspective, could you probably cite an example how the legislation passed by a particular state, you may also name the state or the states, circumvented the Supreme Court directive, at the same time they passed the law which was sanctifying the earlier arrangement?
Say about the DGP, they said that the UPSC will prepare a panel and they will prepare a panel of three, and out of that, the chief minister will select one. But you see, what they did, that instead of
There was a small technical snag for 10 seconds. My question is, the DGP legislations for appointment, the appointment legislations by the states that were passed basically bypassed the Supreme Court directive in terms of probably they complied with it, but at the same time sanctified by circumventing in such a way, they sanctified the earlier arrangement. Just an example from a DGP appointment perspective.
In states, what they have been doing. I mean, I'm giving you the current picture. The current picture is that they are appointing Director Generals of Police who are acting Director Generals of Police. In the state of Andhra, you have an acting Director General of Police. In the state of Telangana, you have an acting Director General of Police. Shall, shall I start all over again?
I I'm
There's some problem. There's some
Yeah,
technical problem.
yeah, it's just a matter of that internet stability. So anyway, sir, my apologies. I cannot help it. Could you please take us through that example of Andhra again?
You see, what the states are doing, I mean, defying the directions of the Supreme Court, what they are doing, they have the state of Andhra, Telangana, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, all these states have today, as on date, they have acting directors general of police. And now why they are appointing acting directors general of police? Because they have not gone through the process. The process involves sending recommendations to the UPSC, and the UPSC drawing a list of, I mean, out of say 5, 6 officers, they prepare a panel of 3 officers, out of whom the DGP should be selected. But instead of sending a panel of names to the UPSC, they are doing it at their own level and appointing acting DGPs. And you see, the motive of some of the states, I won't say all the states, but the motive behind such appointments are that if you carry out our orders and if you function as per our wishes and directions, then we will confirm you in due course of time and make you a regular Director General of Police. Till then, you continue serving as acting DGP only. Now, which is against the letter and spirit of
Then sir,
Supreme
how
Court.
are they complying with the directive? Because the directive straight away wanted them to send the recommendations to the UPSC. They are not sending and putting a acting person there.
They are either not sending or they are sending and then not complying with the UPSC recommendation. That is what is happening. That is what is happening. Besides, I mean, structurally, I mean, in some states, for example, in one state, the Police Act says that the Chief Secretary and the Home Secretary and one more officer, I mean, they will prepare the panel, not the UPSC. They will appoint the DGP. So, I mean, to give another example, I mean, say, for example, the State Security Commission, that will make things more clear. State Security Commission was meant to be a body comprising representatives from the government and representatives from the civil society. And Supreme Court said that it should be evenly balanced, say 50% from civil society and 50% from government. Now, what most of the states have said, yes, we'll constitute the State Security Commission. But while constituting the State Security Commission, from the civil society, the state government have chosen people who are their proteges, known supporters of the government. Instead of being independent people, objective people with a reputation for integrity and objectivity, they have chosen people who are known supporters of government. And they said that, yes, they are from the civil society. So you have diluted the composition of the State Security Commission. Then what they have done, the Supreme Court had said that any recommendation made by the State Security Commission will be mandatory, will be binding on the state government. They have said no, it will be just a recommendation. Now, if it is a recommendation, then you can always overrule it. You can always overrule whatever recommendation made. So, constituting a State Security Commission and then not being obliged to carry out its direction means nothing. I mean, you may as well not have a State Security
So,
Commission.
sir, is the statement directives being circumvented or directives being not complied with in toto? What is more relevant?
I think it is happening both ways. Even where they have complied on paper, they are not, they are going against the spirit of it. They are circumventing it. They are violating it. It's happening both ways. So the directions, I mean, Justice Thomas Committee was appointed in 2008 with a view to examining the level of compliance in the different states. And Justice Thomas Committee found, and I'm quoting their exact words, they were dismayed. Dismayed is the word which they have used by what the committee said, the total indifference of the states to complying with the directions of the state government. This was the conclusion of the Justice Thomas Committee in 2010. And subsequently, after the Justice Thomas Committee gave its report, I submitted, one after the other, I submitted contempt petitions, three contempt petitions. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court did not take cognizance of any contempt petition. They did not issue any notice of appeal to the state governments. That is an unfortunate part. And monitoring of its directions was taking place for quite some time until the pandemic came. And last about 3.5 years, the Supreme Court has not done any monitoring. It was my effort that before the summer vacation, the current summer vacation, the case should be listed, and we made desperate efforts, but somehow it could not be listed. And probably, we are hoping that it is listed after the summer vacation, and these matters will again be taken up. So when
प्रकाश सर, प्रकाश सर, आप अपना थोड़ा वाइप कर लीजिए, because this is thank you. This looks better. Okay,
mm,
Prakash sir, I mean, now what is the status with the Supreme Court?
the status with the Supreme Court is, you see, 18 states, as I said, have passed laws. Now we have issued contempt notices against the states which have passed executive orders. A, B, we have also challenged the constitutionality of the laws which have been passed by the 18 state governments. And three, we are pressing the Supreme Court for renewed monitoring of the status of compliance in different states. I mean, that broadly sums up the position as on date in the judiciary.
And what about the contempt petition? Are you
Contempt
planning to again refile it?
Well, if necessary, we'll file it again. But so far, the four contempt petitions which were filed, they have not produced any results. Somehow the Supreme Court seems averse to uh, issuing any contempt notices to the
What is the
state
center
government.
stake? What is the Center Ministry of Home Affairs' take on this?
Ministry of Home Affairs is not very enthusiastic about the implementation of the court's directions, I would say. And in between, they did something very funny also. They tried to sabotage the Supreme Court directions regarding uh, Police Establishment Board. They said there should be a Civil Services Board which should look into the matter of transfers and postings. I went against that to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court stayed the operation of the uh, proposed Civil Services Board for police officers, as was being suggested by the Home Ministry and the Ministry of Personnel. So they have been. I would say they are just indifferent umpires.
What do you think?
They know that the states are violating, but they are not doing anything to ensure the compliance by the state governments.
Sir, any states in mind who have come close to acting, what do you call, compliant, or acting in cognizance of the fact that the entire, country needs such reforms? Any of the states which come to your
You
mind?
see, in my book, I have analyzed all the states and the level of compliance by them. You see, but this assessment is based essentially on the affidavits filed by the state governments. It may not reflect the ground reality, but based on the affidavits filed by the state governments, on paper they have moved, they have taken some steps, some halting steps, some grudging steps, but some mild steps, but they have taken some steps in the direction of implementing the Supreme Court directions. And in this category come six states. These are Andhra Pradesh, Arunachal Pradesh, Goa, Karnataka, Manipur, and Mizoram. These states, their level of compliance, on paper at least, based on affidavits filed by them, is reasonably good. Then there are three states which I have placed in the category of satisfactory states. These three states are Kerala, Nagaland, and Uttarakhand. The majority of states, 15 states, are, I would say, in average category, and they are Assam, Chhattisgarh, Delhi, Union Territory, Delhi, then Gujarat, Haryana, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, Meghalaya, Odisha, Punjab, Rajasthan, Sikkim, Tamil Nadu, Tripura, and West Bengal. And five states, the compliance level of compliance is poor. And these five states are Bihar, Himachal Pradesh, Maharashtra, Telangana, and Uttar Pradesh. So, I mean, level of compliance differs from state to state. Only there are six states which could be considered reasonably good in terms of compliance on paper. I would repeat, on paper. And five states are extremely poor. They are
Uttar
Bihar,
Pradesh is your
Himachal.
state. Uttar Pradesh has been your state. You are still, you are even currently a part of the state of Uttar Pradesh. I mean, and law and order has been something with which a lot of brownie points are being scored by the current dispensation over there under Mr. Yogi Adityanath. Now the thing is, uh, what do you think would have been the situation had the reforms been applied? And in general, how does the reforms? I understand the process, what you've been documenting and trying and fighting, but how would the reforms make a change to Indian society from a police public, perspective?
You see, one of the most important things on the subject of police reforms is that the police should be given operational autonomy, and it should not be possible for the politicians to get wrong things pushed through. I mean, wrong things pushed through means you are somebody you are opposed to, you get him fixed in a fictitious case, in a false case. Uh, then a member of your party is involved in some scandalous affair, but you sort of protect him from prosecution. These things should stop, and police should be able to enforce the rule of law. That is the most important part of police reforms, and that part, this is the one part which no state government is willing to implement, because every state government in power, whether it is
But then, sir,
Congress.
why blame police or why blame the politicians or the ruling dispensation alone? I mean, it is money which makes all the difference to most of the situations. I mean, and policemen in individual capacities also, they can be dictated, and their behavior, their approach towards using their power can be skewed towards people, the people, the power centers, the people with the money power. I mean, so how does only blaming the ruling dispensation going to this police reform is going to change the entire police system?
Look, it is not a question of money, it's a question of power. Who is in power? And if you are in power and say there is a communal riot, right? You say that my partymen uh, should not be roped in the FIR, and you see to it that your partymen are not named in the FIR. And on the other hand, you ensure that people who are opposed to you are their names figure in the FIR, and the investigation is done against those people, and only those people are charge sheeted. Now, what can what can the police do in such circumstances? There is so much of pressure mounted by the politician. So, I mean, these things are happening day in and day out. And this is what is causing a lot of dissatisfaction among the people. In the Delhi communal riots, in the Delhi riots which happened, I mean, this is one of the major points of contention, that people belonging to the ruling party were not held accountable, while all others were held accountable. And today, this whatever is happening with regard to this wrestling federation, here again we find that someone with a questionable background, who has against whom there were Tada cases in the past, he is not being held accountable. Although, on the other hand, we have very distinguished sports personalities, and Delhi police is obviously under pressure in the matter. So these things erode the confidence of the people, and they erode the credibility of the police, uh, because the police is under pressure all the time.
So where do you
Police
draw the
should
line?
be.
Where do you in that case draw the line in terms of the autonomy or anarchy or the autocracy which is granted to police if they are not controlled? It's a two-edged sword. If they are what do you call insulated from the political pressures, political control. In that case, anarchy or some kind of autocracy can creep in, and that can be much more dangerous. The only recourse the citizens would have to is to go to the courts against any
No,
such
no,
kind of police inaction.
no. I think I you have not fully understood the implications of the State Security Commission. The State Security Commission. Let me elaborate that further. The State Security Commission is a body which is created by the Constitution, the institution of SSC, which was within the limits of law. Well, I mean, they were. It was a kind of watchdog body which would control the government, which would also regulate the police. It is not that police will become a law unto itself. Police is accountable to the law, and for that, the complaints authority, if there are any excesses by the police, the people will go to the complaints authority. You have to function within the limits of law, and this was the charter of the most important body mandated by the Supreme Court and the State Security Commission. But unfortunately, the composition of the State Security Commission has been diluted in all the states wherever they have set up, and its powers have been curtailed. It's no longer the recommendations are not binding on the state government. So
Sir,
the
I do
body
not
which
really know
was
any commission.
intended to
Sir, I don't really know any commission at a state level which basically can cater to the problems and grievances of common citizens, be it pollution, be it consumer forum. I mean, are these going to really be any effect to the common man in this country if you set up a state commission of police, even if they are the bestest of people? I mean, they will obviously again be answerable to the politicians finally. So how does it really make a difference?
No, if you can't find people who are from the civil society who are independent minded, who are objective, and who have interest of the people at heart, and who have interest of the country at heart, and who would not become who would not be wire pulled by the by the people in authority. If you can't find such people from civil society, then I'm sorry, Mr. Goenka, we have no future. I mean, in this vast country of more than 130 crore people. Do you mean to say that we can't find people who have a mind of their own and who would be able to assert their authority and their independence vis-a-vis the government? There are such people. The point is, are we prepared to encourage them? Are we prepared to have them on the panel? Are we prepared to have in the State Security Commission? If you insist on selecting chamchas who will just carry out your orders and directions, then of course that won't happen.
And what about vigilance commissions?
No, Vigilance Commission is there, and they are performing their duties. I mean, that's a different subject. I think I would not like to go into that at this time.
Just like we have ombudsman in the banking or insurance, we have a central vigilance commission in the public sector or in the central government. Why can't we have some kind of an independent vigilance commission which functions for and the secrecy of the complaint, especially in police issues, especially in respect to criminal law and justice, where admittedly by the former Chief Justice of India, K.G. Balakrishnan, the criminal law and justice system in this country is something which is like a black hole. इसको हम कृष्ण विवर बोलते हैं हिंदी में. Almost like a black hole. Just go inside, you can never come out of it. So in that situation, doesn't a vigilance commission, which is independent, autonomous, would hold us in good state for common people like us?
No, not only Vigilance Commission, you should have a controller, CAG, Controller and Auditor General. Should be absolutely free and independent. Election Commission, free and independent. But the point is to what extent these institutions are really performing their duties in the manner that was expected of them. That's a big question. Now, if you appoint a CAG, I mean, I don't want to take names, but I know people who hijacked the Home Ministry and become Home Secretary. The day they retire, they become Home Secretary. Now, what is that? It is ridiculous. Why are these things allowed? A man hands over charge as Chief Secretary of one state and he retires. And the day he retires, he comes to Delhi and takes over as Home Secretary. And the day he retires, then he becomes a Comptroller and Auditor General. Now, if you select such men who are known supporters and proteges of the government and give them positions of power in constitutional bodies, then these constitutional bodies will not function independently. The problem today is with the selection and appointment of these people at in these constitutional bodies, whether it's Vigilance Commission or whether it is a CAG or whether it's Election Commission. So I mean, that's a problem, really
Or
a
whether it
problem.
is the LG of a UT, or whether
DG
it
of
is
the
the LG.
LG of a state, whatever it is. So you see, our selection should be objective and should be in the best interest of the people of that area, in the best interest of the country. Are we selecting the best people for these jobs? There's no dearth of talent in this country. But is the right talent getting the right elevation? That is the problem. Are you getting, I mean, as governors, what kind of people are being appointed as governors these days? Look at them. I mean, they're such pathetic figures, most of them.
Just a question which is a little bit digression from the main issue of reforms. I mean, what is this concept about allowing the Lal Batti syndrome to the police people? Why is the Lal Batti still allowed to the police?
No, Lal Batti has become blue Batti now. It's no longer Lal Batti. but uh, blue Batti also, it is very much less today. I mean, there have been repeated directions on the subject. Repeated directions, and now Lal Batti is gone. I don't know where have you seen the Lal Batti? All the police
No,
officers.
Lal Batti, I will correct myself. It's a blue Batti for 5, 6 services like the ambulances or the
Uh,
emergency services. It's allowed
uh,
fire. So it's allowed for police specifically. So
no, they
are
have
you
allowed only.
in favor for that? Are you in favor of that?
No, they should allow it only for, say, I mean, in a district, the superintendent of police and the district magistrate. Right. To that extent, it's fine because they may be going to places where there is emergency. You can't sort of stop them. But this small latitude which this government has given, that is misused by others. So many other people are also unauthorized people are using it. Unfortunately, a whole lot of criminals are using these battis,
Sir,
and they,
I stay, stay in a place where, I mean, in most of the places which are not that well developed or the law and order is a little bit of a contentious issue, I see that the tag of police is used rampantly by people on their cars, on their vehicles. Is this something? Is this again? These are all VIP issues, which are basically intimidation issues, which are used by even the people working in the forces. I mean, people at the DGP level should at least ensure that these kind of dirty social issues are at least can be taken care of, because for this you don't need much of a court intervention.
I agree. I agree. You don't need court intervention, but problem is, I mean, in this country, member parliament हो तो block development officer हो तो जज साहब हो तो जो मतलब हर आदमी अपनी आइडेंटिटी फ्लोट करता है। यहाँ तक कि अब ब्राह्मण लिखते हैं, यादव लिखते हैं, ठाकुर लिखते हैं। भाई ये क्या बात है? ये सब चीजें, this is all rubbish. This is all nonsense. And of course, I have seen a whole lot of retired police officers also painting red and blue behind their cars just to show
Post
that yes.
retirement, sir, post retirement, almost most of the IPS officers still use police written on their cards. They still use all the facilities. I mean that, and they use this on their private cars. I mean, how can you write police on a private car? It's on duty fine, but on a private car using police, using the blue beacon. I mean, even the retired IPS officers. I mean, it's not
No,
an individual
they,
case;
they're,
it's a general case.
yeah, they're not supposed to be doing that. They're not supposed to be doing that. And if they're doing it, it's wrong.
Sir, how do you think the police reforms that you have suggested will impact the common man's life, if at all some states do comply with it to some extent?
Look, I would say police reforms are very important for a number of reasons. I'll limit myself to three reasons only. Firstly, we are all very proud of our economic development, that we are the fastest growing economy in the world today, even among the large countries. We are very proud of it. But Mr. Amit, please try to understand that you can have fast economic development only when there is good law and order. If there's chaos, if there's anarchy, if there is lawlessness, and if factories are attacked, and if managers are held um, uh, captive by the labor, things of if there's labor unrest and all those things, if the communal riot, this that, or reservation agitation where thousands of crores worth of property was burned down in Haryana, then you can't have economic development. If you want economic development, there should be good law and order. And you can have good law and order only when there is a professional police. That is what we are missing. We are not having a professional police. We are having a police which has the resources, which has the vehicles also, which has good communications also. But but when it comes to the crunch, when it comes to very crucial, important cases, we which have political overtones, mind you. When the only common man is involved, then there's no problem. They do a good job. But when there is a case where which has political overtones, then police does not measure up to our expectations. So, if you want sustained economic progress, I would say even faster economic progress. I mean, if we are growing, say, at about 6% per year, if there is really good law and order, and if the law and order improves further, maybe it will be 10% and 12%. So, if you want sustained economic progress in the country, then we must have good professional police, and good professional police will be there only when you have uh, police reforms are implemented in letter and spirit. That is what I want to emphasize. On paper, paper compliance is not enough. Secondly, uh, uh, we are very proud of our democracy. But if the democracy is being infiltrated by criminals, I mean, or say people of questionable background, 43% of the people today in parliament are according to Association of Democratic Reforms, they have a questionable background. If that is what is happening, then uh, I'm afraid this democracy itself, its future is at a stake. And if democracy's future is at stake, then what will happen to the country is anybody's guess. So if you want that police should be able to take action against people of all political shades, irrespective of any extraneous considerations, then we must have uh, functional autonomy for the police, which means we must have police reforms. Thirdly, we have very serious internal security problems in the country. I mean, yeah, you have problem in Kashmir, you have problem in Northeast, you have problem in Maoist Belt, you have terrorist problem, you have communal problem, you have Khalistan, all kinds of problems are there in this country. And these problems can be tackled only by a professional police force, a people's police, and not a police which does firefighting on behalf of the ruling party. That's not enough. It should do firefighting in a manner where criminals of all shades, including those of the ruling party, they can also be taken care of by the police. So the internal security situation continues to be on the boil because we don't have a professional police, and much needs to be done to improve that. Of course, in spite of police not being professional, yet we were able to produce phenomenal results in Punjab, in Telangana, in Tripura, in the Tarai area of UP. We were able to produce phenomenal results. But then you had exceptionally good officers who managed to produce results even within the constraints they had to operate. But if you want a general atmosphere where the average police officer is able to function uh, effectively with a fair degree of autonomy, then it's necessary that we have a professional police force. You have police reforms, which will lead to a professional police, and then gradual improvement and solution of most of the internal security problems.
So the police people heading the police forces in various capacities are generally the IPS officers, the best of the lot in the country. Every year they are selected from the UPSC. I mean, the rest of the people who are joining the forces, right up to those volunteers and those, what do you call that, civic police. And people we have. For example, I'm surprised to see states like West Bengal. There are police. We are hardly able to understand the difference between uh, the civic, the volunteers, the police, the traffic police, the white dressed, the Scotland Yard dressed police, the green dressed police from the Bangladesh, kind of background. And then we have, somebody with khaki also from the West Bengal police. I mean, what exactly is the dress code nationally? Is there any dress code nationally for the police?
Yes, there is a dress code that you have to wear khaki, but see, in every state, see, traffic police, there are slight variations, and because it's a state subject, it's a state subject. So, although Modi ji has been talking of a uniform police uniform across the country, uh, well, that it should be. I mean, we have uniform police dress code in the sense that the policemen across the country they wear khaki, but even this khaki may have different shades. If you can
But in
ensure
Bengal
that
police, Kolkata police has a white dress.
Yes, yes. I mean, it's every state has some peculiarity. Every state, because we have allowed every state to have its own. I mean, as I said, the police is a state subject. So, I mean, you travel across the country, and there would be minor variations in the dress. That is not so material. They say dress is not so material. What is material and what is important is the ethos, the working philosophy of
I'll
the
come to
police.
that. So you're talking
Mm.
about when the issues are, political in nature, the police becomes totally kind of, it becomes a complete, what do you call it? It starts playing into the hands of the politicians, and it's like a katputli, as we say in Hindi. They start functioning at the disposal of the political power and dispensation. Now my understanding is they are more unprofessional when it has got nothing to do politically, but it has to do with only a common man. Because most of the cases of individual complaints, most of the cases which go unreported are primarily because of the fear of the police, exploiting the trauma of the victim. That is the major cross that this country faces as common citizens. We do not have the guts to go to the police just because we know that the complainant is the first one who is going to be victimized by the police, and they know how to make money from both sides.
It is not such a dismal picture as you are painting, but there may be cases where complainant is victimized. There are cases. I am not disputing that, but by and large, you see unfortunately the good work of the police does not get publicity. I mean, when a man is work now, if you read the report prepared by Common Cause and other organizations recently on the status of policing, a common policeman is working 16 hours a day. That is their finding. Now, is anybody bothered about it? Nobody is bothered about it. That here's a man working 16 hours a day and 365 days a year. He has no holidays. He has no weekly offs. You don't give him proper housing. You expect him to be on duty around the clock, and it goes on year after every festival. He's on duty. Does anybody talk of human rights of the policeman? Tell me. You will talk about the human rights of a terrorist if he's arrested by the police, but you will never talk about the human rights of an average policeman. This is very unfortunate that the good work of the police seldom gets recognized. Now, the Kumbh Mela was organized in Allahabad recently. Now, that Kumbh Mela witnessed the total traffic which came and went back was, I think, more than 30, 40 crore people. Now, can any foreign country, can any police of any foreign country imagine regulating a crowd of 30, 40 crore people over a period of even 1 month at one place? People coming from all over the country and even beyond the country, and they being allowed to take bath at a particular place on a particular day at a particular hour, and then they are freely, they are regulated in a very organized manner. They are dispersed. So the good work of the police never gets noticed. In Punjab, there was a time when terrorists. If you read the history of Punjab during the terrorist days, in Shekhar Gupta's words, there were only two entities which were functioning. You had terrorists and you had the police. Everything else had collapsed. Every government department had collapsed. There was nothing in Punjab at those days except terrorists on one side and police on the other side, supported by the central armed police forces. At that time, the amount of the battle which was fought and the battle which was won, I mean, it's an example to the rest of the world, not only to India, of a terrorism aided and supported by a foreign country with its full strength was liquidated because the police rose to the occasion. The police gave their best to the country, and this movement was finished. So the good work of the police seldom,
Times
and
the
during the
times
20,
have
and
changed. So
the
times have changed over the last 35 years. KPS Gill and Julius Ribeiro. I mean, the times have changed so much so that overnight, when they had to be flown, Indira Gandhi had to send Mr. Ribeiro, as he told me in one of the interviews. Overnight, he was sent along with the two ministers to Punjab to take over as the DGP over there. Times have changed today, wherein, I'll tell you. Trust me, it is very clear that Gangajal options, the kind of movies that are made to, highlight the plight of the common citizens. by movie makers in the Hindi film industry and otherwise, it makes us feel sad that at the same time when the states are not complying with the police reforms which crusaders like you have put forth and fought for 25 years now, those have been bypassed and overlooked, twisted, manipulated, convoluted, and ultimately, there has been complete overlook of the need of such police reforms. The police personnel, they are all trying to play to the tune of the politicians to ensure that their individual careers are, not affected. Their pensions, their provident funds are not stuck up into the files after their retirement. So it's not a very easy situation, sir. We can go on forever because you see this police and common citizen conflict is something which is the most important solution which should come out of police reforms. We have had many discussions around the police wildlife conflict. This is soon turning out to be a police common man conflict on the same lines, because we also now are living in no less vulnerable a place than a jungle. So better treat us as wild animals and let us try and sort this problem as a police wildlife problem or a police common man problem, because otherwise the politicians going to have their say, the police people are going to make their careers, people down the line in the police are going to keep blaming about the plight that they are in. They don't get paid well, they don't get holidays, their life is at stake, they stand in the sun for 16 hours a day, they operate out of all circumstances during lockdown. So if two wrongs don't make a right, police has to also have somebody to look up to, just like we as common citizens have police reforms to look up to. I only can wish and hope, sir, and pray to people like you that you can carry on this fight and you have more people who join the bandwagon along with you in the true sense, in letter and spirit, so that police reforms at the state levels, especially considering that we're in the hands of a strong leadership and a stable leadership of the last 9 years. In the next 5, 6 years, if it comes back to power and the federal system stays intact, which again is getting questionable because of the regional impact the parties are having at the south, especially at the south state levels, I'm sure we are going to be facing a much more tougher time in the days ahead if the police reforms are not implemented in letter and spirit. No more, beating around the bush or dilly-dallying with the matter. Mr. Prakash Singh, you need to stay with us till 2047 so that we can see the light of the day. Police reforms can see the light of the day. Thank you so much, sir. Jai Hind. Thank you so much.
Namaskar.